What's going on, family? We're here on this glorious Tuesday morning. It's 11 a.m. East Coast time, and you're in the place where you need to be right now. You're inside the Beatdown. My name is Brew. This is the Badger. What's going on, bro?
Hey man, I can't call it, bro. You look like you're having a pretty good morning.
It's a morning. It's a morning.
Hey, Q.
Hi.
Go, go.
Okay.
Gotta love that.
I guess. Yeah, you do. You do. So, what we got on deck today?
Man, we got a pretty good show, man. I'm hoping that we get a surprise guest in. We're not gonna give any giveaways as to who it might be or when they'll be coming on, but if they join good, they get all the information. We'll be looking forward to having them, and if not, we'll keep the same moving like we normally do.
That's true. All right. Well, look. I know we start off with combat information usually, so I'm gonna yield to you on this one.
Nah, man. Just want to know if you saw where looks like Sean Porter and Terrence Crawford is going to be forced upon us. Not forced because that's a great fight that we want to see. But I think most people want to see Spence first. But it sounds as if Spence is, and Pacquiao aren't willing to play ball right now. So he came out and said that Sean Porter is his next option. So we'll get to learn a lot about Terrence Crawford throughout the whole process because of that fight coming to fruition, and we know that he's really trying to fight the best.
Do you really think that's even gonna be a test for Bud?
Yeah, bro. When is Sean Porter ever? Listen, the only fight that we thought Sean Porter probably wasn't competitive in was his first loss to Kell Brook back in 2015, I think. That was the only time I actually seen Sean Porter actually just get beat. Every fight since then, Keith Thurman, Danny Garcia, Earl Spence, and whoever else he's fought him, Adrian Bronner. All these were tough fights for the people who was fighting. Whether the outcome favored him or not, those were tough fights. I'm sure that none of those guys were rushing the time back up into. So I don't want to disrespect Sean Porter. We know Bud's special, but a fight against Sean Porter will be just as difficult as it was for Earl Spence, if not worse. Because I don't know if Terrence gets as big as Earl. So
Okay. It's gonna be interesting because it looks like 47 is top heavy. Because you look at the drop off after Sean Porter and Danny Garcia. You look at the drop off for the ones who are below that. Nobody even considers them really competitive against the champions. When you get below a Sean Porter and a Danny Garcia.
indeed, indeed. Now, what is interesting is we hear people talking about Jerron Ennis and the next coming. So, what do we do with Keith Thurman? Who
Um,
left out?
Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying Keith is pretty much left out the dry. So, where do we go with him from here? He seems to be the odd man out. It's going to be particularly interesting to see what Keith's first fight is going to be next year. He's hollering for Earl Spence. We know that's not going to happen. We know Pacquiao's not giving a rematch. Crawford said he priced himself out, which may or may not be true. Who knows? And, he's already beaten Sean Porter and Danny Garcia. I don't want to see a Keith Thurman versus Danny Garcia rematch. I'm sure Danny Garcia doesn't want that.
That's what you're gonna see.
Think so?
Yeah, because none of the champions want to give him a shot. So the only thing he can do is fight who the media says, are the ones who are still deserving. And he beats them, then they have to give him a shot.
Dig this though, brother. Did you know that a lot of boxing pundits put Sean Porter ahead of Keith Thurman in the rankings,
Yeah.
even though they both lost?
Yeah, but Porter's
Albeit
been
Porter's been more
active.
active.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep. Yep.
So I mean, to me that makes sense.
Okay. What about
But
Danny
either
Garcia
way,
being ahead of him?
been more active.
Okay.
I don't agree with it, but I see where the pundits can use that as a tool. Um, Realistically, I still say, Pacquiao should have to get, but I, you don't understand how the contract terms were labeled and this and that, but he should have gotten his rematch with Pacquiao. But even when I was screaming at you, were like, well, we don't think Thurman may be ready mentally. We don't know where his mental state is. Well, I mean, with arguments like that, if the pundits are able to use the same arguments, then yeah, they're gonna keep Thurman as low as they can keep him.
Yeah, that is true, bro. When I made that comment about Keith's mental state, that's exactly what I was talking about. Like, bruh, he doesn't seem like he's in it the way he should be in it. Just outward opinion observation, and I don't want to take anything away from Manny Pacquiao. Just don't see how he beat Keith Thurman. There's no way that on this planet you can tell me that at 40 years old, however old he was, that he was better than Keith Thurman. I just don't buy that, and that leads me to think that maybe Keith's not where he should be mentally.
I don't think it had anything to do, honestly, with Keith in that situation. I think it had everything to do with Manny and his supplements. I'll still say that, and I will keep saying that until I'm proven wrong. I mean, Keith did not, his people, whoever he's responsible for it, did not get the right drug test before the fight. Mayweather was adamant about a certain type of test that Pacquiao had to pass. And if Mayweather was adamant about it, I don't care how many fights Manny looked normal between, the Mayweather fight and your fight, I would ask for the same test because that was your title and that was your meal ticket and that put you at the top of the food chain. That was your fault, Keith. Your management, the whole lot, but it's all on you because it's your business that you didn't request that type of drug test before the fight because Manny did not look like Manny had looked in years before that fight. He looked like a very much younger version of himself, and as Floyd would say, a souped up version of himself. So I can't blame Manny Pacquiao. Manny did what he was allowed to do. So all them bombs you hit him with that didn't hurt him, and it took your soul because you realized nothing you could do to that man at that point would hurt him, you were responsible for it. Point blank. I had to
Yeah, and listen, bro, I'm with you. But what I'm saying is, yeah, we can talk about Manny's, whatever we feel like, But to be clear about something, Keith Thurman didn't like himself either. He wasn't ready for that fight.
Keith,
I mean, the mistakes he was making, granted, some of those were habits, but bro, he didn't like he was ready to fight, bro.
bro,
He came out flat. He got put down.
even
He didn't
you
really
said
get
it.
into a groove.
Even you said it during those middle and late rounds. Keith was hitting Manny with shots that would take anybody else out.
Yeah.
But Manny was just smiling, jumping to the side, and still swinging. It's like no normal human being could do this. Keith,
No,
we know Keith has
I'm
power. We know he has power. One time, he was hitting Manny many times. Did no effect.
well, yeah, we all saw that Manny has to go to the hospital after the fact, but I don't want to let Keith off the hook, bro. Like you're right. We look, what's understood doesn't have to be explained, right? We kind of seen this story before Manny Pacquiao, but that's not what I'm talking about. We seen Keith, in my humble opinion, beat Danny Garcia from pillar to post for
Yeah,
12 rounds.
yeah.
He may have lost 4 rounds max in that fight. Max. I don't think he lost that many. Even when he was on his bicycle. We saw him beat Sean Porter in a very good, highly contested close fight, but we saw him win that fight.
Yeah.
You got in there with a man that doesn't have the power that Danny Garcia has, and isn't as relentless as Sean Porter, and you made him look unbeatable. You let him jump out ahead of you in the first 2 or 3 rounds. You had to dig yourself out of the hole, and you did. And then you get him with a body shot, slash the mouthpiece, and now that's it. I just don't think he was ready, bro. I think even with Manny being where he was, taking whatever he may have taken, already Keith Thurman is still just too much for him. Now maybe he doesn't stop him, but bro, you whatever supplements he's taking doesn't make him faster or quicker. It may make him stronger, it may make him more durable, it may allow him to keep his endurance, but those switches don't get better because you're taking a supplement. And Keith had all those things in his favor naturally, just with youth. And you out there and you use none of it.
Listen, you go in there with somebody you know you should be beating, right? You take a shot from them and it surprises you. Okay, when you get up, you start moving around. You're hitting them with clean shots for a couple rounds. Clean. And they're just smiling at you. Eventually, even the best of the best, if that happens to them, eventually it takes a toll on you mentally. Now, should it? No, but Keith is human. Listen, I think 9 times out of 10, that fight goes to Keith Thurman. 9 times out of 10. That one fight, and why do I? And Manny's proving it by not giving Keith a rematch. That one fight with the Manny.
Okay, and listen, a lot of that is also trying to go out with on top. He knows he fight Keith Thurman again, he'll lose that fight. He knows that. He knows that everything that needed to happen in that fight happened. I got a fighter that wasn't fully committed. He had just come off one not so good performance, and he couldn't get up and get motivated for me. I'm not giving him another rematch. The advantage he had was fighting me the first time at 40 plus years old, and he wasn't ready. So I'm, as much as I would like for man to give him a rematch because we are Keith Thurman and his family, I'm not mad at him for not giving him a rematch. Now he gets to go and either fight someone that may get an opportunity, or he gets to be baptized into retirement by Earl Spence or Terrence Crawford. Either way, that Keith Thurman train has sailed, which brings us back to our original point. Where does he go from here? And if Danny Garcia's rematch, it's probably not going to be good for Keith.
I am very upset that Keith doesn't get his rematch. I've heard the arguments that you've made, but in my day, if a champion lost his title, unless there was no clause in there for a rematch, he got a rematch. Again, I haven't seen the contract. I didn't see.
Yeah, we don't know for sure.
All I know is Pacquiao's not giving him a rematch, and nobody's forcing Pacquiao to give him a rematch.
And just to close it out, I do think I remember Keith saying on one platform that there was no contract clause on his behalf. It was for Manny, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow, so if Manny lost, Manny would have gotten another shot at the title.
Yep, but you have to understand from Keith's standpoint, those are two biggest paydays he'd ever seen. Because remember, he wasn't really trying to fight Earl at the time. That fight would eventually happen, but he really wasn't trying to fight Earl then. We all know that. So he was looking to cash in and probably cash out. 2 fights to Manny Pacquiao, you win them both, you make 10 plus me each time. You run off into the sunset now. Because you beat Garcia and you beat Porter. So the only 2 guys you didn't fight was Crawford and Spence, but you got a resume that people respect.
And Crawford had just come up to 47.
And there you go. Yep. So he said,
he didn't have to take that fight.
Yep.
But now, look who hold the keys.
It ain't no fun when the rabbit got the gun, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I wonder if he regrets vacating one of his belts. Because he did vacate one before he fought Pacquiao.
He gave up the he gave up the WBC.
Yeah.
Because that's how Sean fought Danny for it.
Yeah.
Keith had WBA and the WBC. Earl had the IBF that he got from Kell Brook. And I don't know who had WBO. I don't know who had that one.
I forget. Is that who Crawford has now?
Yeah, Jeff Horn.
Jeff Horn. Got it from Manny.
Yep.
Which is interesting. Manny's always been in the picture, even when you didn't see him or hear him. But that fight, Manny was robbed. Completely. You and I, we talked about it, on the old show, that Manny was robbed. And coming off of that, you said that he would probably get another fight, a retirement fight. I forgot who his next fight was against, but I'm trying to figure out who Manny got his belt. Oh, Keith Thurman.
Well, no, Manny was already the super champion. Keith was the regular champion.
I can't stand that super champion stuff.
I know that's the dumbest thing in the world, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's whoever they want to award it to. Yeah. Listen, in MMA news, looks like Khabib Nurmagomedov um, was seen in an interview talking about UFC 257, and he believes that Poirier McGregor will either get his belt then or be in line to get his belt in their neck. Whoever wins that one in their next win. But he maintains that he is not coming back. Although your Uncle Dana seems to think after they meet in Abu Dhabi in January that he'll be able to convince Khabib to come back. What do you think on this one?
Yeah, indeed. I saw that clip. Uh, Listen, bro. I'm gonna be honest with you. It's 2020, going into 2021. What could you not expect? This is literally the theater of the unexpected, not just in combat sports, but the world we're living in. So at this point, nothing would surprise me. I do feel like Khabib is a man of principle. I don't think he reneged on his word, but man, like I said, we made it through 2020, anything's possible.
One thing that people in America look at and say, well, man, he ain't going to be able to turn down all that money. They forget that Khabib was idolized by like princes and kings and dignitaries around the world. Next to Ali, he was probably the most famous fighter going, including Conor McGregor. And I want to probably one of the most popular fighters around the world, just because of how many people of the Islamic faith just poured into Khabib. So I don't think money is going to be anything that would turn him because I think he has access to more money than Dana White. So that's one thing you couldn't even push on the table for him unless you gonna offer him maybe $200 million to come back, and that's Floyd Mayweather money. I don't think the UFC would be able to stand that. I'm trying to think what kind of carrot you could dangle in front of this man who said he's keeping a promise he made to his mom on the heels of his dad dying. And the fact that he made the statement that he fought because of his dad. It wasn't that he liked fighting, it was that he fought because his dad wanted him to fight. So when he died, his mom evidently had that promise, if your dad dies, make this your last fight. Okay, mom. I don't know what kind of money you could offer him if he is a man of his principles that would make him break that word to his mom. Because he's got all the money he could ever want right now.
Well, I mean, look, I'm gonna say this as plain as I can say it without offending anybody, but principle is still real.
Mm-hmm.
Morality is still real.
Somewhere.
And despite what we see on in the media or what we're told, that's not the way that most people operate. Most people operate with some type of moral compass or principle about them. Khabib Nurmagomedov is no different. I feel like he is a man of principle, and that alone is enough. As a man that has been raised by another man that has shown you the proper way, all you have is your word. Or infamous words as was it Pimp C, all I got is my word and my balls. That's all you have as a man, bro. All you have is your word and your manhood. You lose either one of those, both of those, you have nothing. So I feel like Khabib is just a guy of principle. And I feel like that even without what you're saying, and we know those things are very well true, I still feel like he probably wouldn't come back, bro.
It's funny you say that because my grandfather always taught me that all a man has is his word, and his word is his manhood. So you can't when you can detach those, then you're already willing to let one of those go. So yeah, I agree with you. It's just I don't think he's coming back. I think he was very committed. Um, and it's funny because he said Justin Gaethje. He said your time is coming. But when they asked him who the top three, in his opinion, lightweights were, it was Poirier, McGregor, and Melchizedek. So he didn't even mention Gaethje in that. And I think Melchizedek is not even ranked in the top 10, but he said he should be ranked in the top three. But that's his opinion.
Yeah, and sometimes emotions get the best of us, and he's human. He has emotions just like the rest of us. Um, but yeah, bro, I don't.
One thing I didn't realize until after the fight was that Gaethje and Khabib have the same manager.
Most of the big stars in the UFC have the same manager,
Now let that sink
and
in.
yeah, yeah,
Let that sink in. 'Cause that is something that means a whole lot, as far as how much you do get paid and when you can fight
yeah.
and who you can fight. So, yeah. So it sounds like to me, and I don't know this for sure. I'm gonna do some research on it. Maybe their managers recommended to a lot of them.
Could be. I can't think of the guy's name, but I saw it on Usman's page when he was wishing him a happy birthday. And then they all took a picture together, like all of his guys in the UFC or MMA. It was at least probably 15 to 20 men and women, bro. And
Wow.
most of them are faces that we'd all recognize from the UFC. So,
Somebody's getting paid every week.
hey, hey,
So it is what it is. Hey, if you can be a manager and make it, that's the best way to go because you usually don't get hit.
hey, I'm trying to tell you,
Trainers get hit by accident, sparring partners get hit, managers get paid.
they get paid.
And you get paid more than the trainer, which is shocking. But
Yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
it is what it is. But you take care of all the loose ends. Um, man. Okay, so I know this is a combat sports show. I saw a thing on YouTube, and you normally I wouldn't look at stuff like this. I saw two things. I watched the Chris Jericho story. I didn't realize Jericho has been wrestling he's in his fourth decade of in ring performance.
Dang.
Right, right. And he started when he was 19. So he's over 50. Um, and he's still competing. Not getting in there every once in a while. No, he's still competing. And he changes his moves to suit his abilities, which I don't think a lot of wrestlers understood. When they started going through his anthology, and you look at the time when he was Lionheart Chris Jericho, and then he was Y2J, and then it was just you look at the moves that he did. There were some that he kept in his repertoire that he was able to pull off, but the ones that he wasn't going to be able to sell completely, they were gone, and he would replace them with new ones. And it was pretty impressive. And now every once in a while you'll see him do like a lion salt, which is a moonsault, off the middle rope. Or you'll see the code breaker, which is he started that one where he would jump up and grab your forehead and pull you down into his knees. Um, yeah, a lot of variations of that have come since then. But I gotta give my hat off to him, tip my hat to him, bro, because after seeing that, that career at a glance, it was pretty amazing. The fact that he had a run in the WWE, WWF, and the WWE. He was the very first WWE undisputed champion.
Mm.
All mind that he didn't hold it that long, but the fact that you were able to bridge the WCW belt and the WWF belt when it became the WWE, you hold a place in history. but they never gave him that main event status. Like for the first 10 years he was in the company, but he kept working and 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 working, and probably one of the best in ring promo guys that you'll find. He can still sell his in ring promos. So I tapped my hat off to him. And then they had a video on from wrestlers saying what is the Undertaker like in real life. That was interesting. If you guys can find that on YouTube, if you were a wrestling fan during the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, check that video out and find out what this dude was like in real life. I know I've made some comments about him on this show, but when you hear other wrestlers talk about, when they brought him in Memphis, and got 6'10", he was like 315 at the time, and they brought him into a tryout, and they asked him to slingshot a guy off the ropes, and then from a standing position, this guy's like 6'2", he jumps up and does a leapfrog over the guy. The guy doesn't bend down so he can do a leapfrog. He jumps up from a standing position and leapfrogs over the guy. And that was the first time they saw him get on the top rope and walk across the top rope and drop the elbow. And they were looking at this kid like, what kind of freak of nature is this? He never wanted to play basketball. When he came to TBS, they used to talk about, Jim Ross used to say, well, he had a tryout with the Atlanta Hawks, and that he just wasn't that type of guy. He got thrown out of several colleges for fighting. So, he was tougher outside of the ring than he was inside the ring. But they say if you were a straight up guy to him, you wouldn't have found a nicer friend. But he was just one of those guys. He was just a tough guy. I was telling you before he got. You look adorable. I can't see your whole outfit. But they said before he got into wrestling, he used to go. He was a cleaner. Right? You should say he would go get money for loan sharks from people who owed him. And if they didn't pay, he talked about it on national television one time. He was like, well, if they didn't pay, I had to do my job.
Right.
So since then, his mind has changed. But, that's just how he grew up, how he was. So if you get a chance to check out either of those documentaries, good documentaries on professional wrestlers, combat sports entertainers, from the time before they said wrestling was entertainment.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Did you see where the Chimaev Leon Edwards fight was scrapped again?
What reason? Did they give a reason?
I didn't get a chance to read it. I saw it. I want to ask you about it. I think you probably jumped on it before I did. But yeah, they didn't give a reason, but I'm like, come on, man. Like, it's the third time, right?
Yeah. I don't really think they want that fight to happen.
For who though?
Or I was gonna say, I don't know. Somebody in that mix does not want that fight to happen, and I don't think it's Leon Edwards.
You're gonna find out, bro. They need to figure this thing out. That sucks, man. We were actually looking forward to that fight. Well, I know I was.
Yeah, I was too. And at this point, it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me. Hey, Miss Karen. Oh, gorgeous ladies of wrestling.
Hey, did you ever watch that show on Netflix?
I heard about it. I haven't seen it.
Bro, it's actually kind of funny. I enjoyed it. I watched the first 2 seasons.
Okay. Now,
yeah, check it out. It's interesting, man.
They were phenomenal. The only men in there were the announcers and the managers. And they had this one named Queen Kong. And I remember Queen Kong because my grandfather was like, they made a bathing suit for her? That's when they used to wrestle in bathing suits, bro. I used to like Glow. Glow was interesting. There was another organization, ladies wrestling organization, that was more geared towards wrestling and fighting, but it didn't sound like Glow. I can't remember the name of it, but it was interesting. Thank you, Miss Karen, because I forgot about Glow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Check out the show on Netflix. It's pretty funny.
Is it called Glow?
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay. So it's a show. Is it like a
Yeah.
real? Is it?
No, no, it's basically a reenactment of what it was like starting Glow, and they create their own characters. But it's actually pretty fun. It's a comedy. I think
Okay.
you'll like it though.
I'll
Yeah.
definitely watch it. Hey, speaking of that, you ever hear the name Big Van Vader?
Yeah.
Do you get a chance? Check out his career. That guy is interesting. He was interesting
Hmm.
from top to bottom. They were talking about him getting in a fight with Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff backstage.
Mr. Wonderful.
And Mr. Wonderful, they said if Mr. Wonderful had a boot on, he would have killed Leon. Now, Leon doesn't tell the story the same way. That's like a white guy named Leon. That just blew my mind.
Hey man,
Um,
there's a couple white drums too. It happens.
but they said Mr. Wonderful kicked that man so hard in his head after knocking him down that they had to take him to the hospital on a stretcher. And they said if he had, and he had, Orndorff
Wow.
had flip flops on instead of his wrestling boots. Said if he had his wrestling boots on, he'd have killed him. But
Wow.
minus that, I always salute Vader because Vader was willing to put Ron Simmons over as the first WCW Black Heavyweight Champion. And you might as well say NWA WCW, but they gave him credit
Hmm.
as the first WCW Black Heavyweight Champion. One little piece of information that I got recently that I didn't realize. Do you know who the first NWA Black Heavyweight Champion was?
I do not.
It happened in the 2000s by a guy named Ron the Truth Killings, R Truth, who wrestles now. And his career has spanned almost well over 20 years. And he doesn't get the credit he deserves. He's had to reinvent himself. He started out with ECW and Mid South, and it was hard wrestling back then in in the South for us. But he made it. I mean, the kid turned down a Division I basketball scholarship to
Wow.
basketball or football to follow wrestling.
Wow.
So I mean, it's a little bit of wrestling history. Moving on, but I know we said we were gonna cover wrestling more on this show.
Yeah.
So
No, the fact. Well, hey man, people, you got to be convicted about something, right? You got to chase your dream.
yeah,
Give up a free education, a possible opportunity to, maybe make it to the next level at one of those sports if you chose to stick it out with your passion. That says a lot.
yeah, and he's had to stick it out because and this is after he he was wrestling for a backyard organization and selling drugs at the same time and got popped, and that's when he turned his life around. He said, "You know what? I'm committing to wrestling because I should not get arrested for this." That's pretty much.
Yeah, and listen, that's the story of a lot of people, but for some reason that sounds fitting for a wrestler.
Wait till we get into New Jack's story. Um, I don't know if you have you ever heard of him? A wrestler named
Nah.
Jerome
Mm-mm.
New Jack. I can't remember his last name, but I'll have it next time I bring it up. I'll have it. But he has a real interesting story. That he should have been dead long ago,
Wow.
and he'll tell you stories about wrestlers like Jimmy Hart. He was talking about a
Wow.
story where they were messing with this girl and they were all getting high and the girl died in the middle of them messing with her, and he left the room. He left the room, and
Bro, listen, after watching, listen, I had been detached from wrestling for probably about easily 10 years. And I watched the movie The Wrestler with your boy. I was like, man. And they said that was a mild story. Them boys lived, well, I don't know about now, but they used to live crazy back then.
listen, my mom had a boss when she worked for an engineering firm, and one of the jobs he had before then, he was a road agent for Jake the Snake Roberts and the Junkyard Dog.
Mm,
Now,
mm,
his ex-wife got him into it. Her name was Nancy. A lot of people know the name Nancy. A lot of people knew her as Woman. She then became
mm,
Chris Benoit's wife, who he killed.
mm,
Right. So
mm.
she sent me all this paraphernalia when I was my freshman year in college from UWF, like pictures of Sting, Ric Flair, Ron Simmons, and Butch Reed as Doom. I had all kinds. I wish I still had those pictures, bro.
Mm.
Anyways, he was talking to my mom and telling her a story about when Nancy said you better carry a weapon on you because they got paid in cash and he always had to carry their cash. He paid them what they were owed. He carried the rest of it in case something happened. He needed to get them out of trouble. Well, he was talking about that he saw Jake the Snake Roberts and the Junkyard Dog line a filing cabinet with cocaine and started each end, and they snorted all the
Met in the middle.
cocaine on the filing cabinet. And when they
That's wild.
realized they were out of cocaine and out of money, they looked at him, and he said, just by instinct, he cocked that 45 and pointed it straight.
Wow.
He realized just how dangerous. Because those guys, you think about it, you put your body on the line every night, and back then, it's still now, you didn't have insurance. So you got what got you through, either painkillers or painkillers, whichever you
Yeah.
could get easier. And
Right.
most of them could get cocaine easy. So
Hmm.
there's a story they tell about them doing cocaine with the Miami-Dade Police Department when they thought they were going to come arrest them, and they came in and partied with them. And you're like, whoa. It was lawless.
Got to be more.
It was lawless. So
I
I'm
tell
off
you
my
that, yeah,
wrestling tip.
lawlessness is the theme for that story.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
police, see? And we've been saying, we ain't gonna go down the rabbit hole. Anyway, what else, man? we almost went somewhere with that and we don't need to go there. So what else? Oh, um, we are in line, and it sounds like they're trying to almost guarantee this. Piggyback off what you said yesterday, Caleb Plant narrowing down on the Canelo Alvarez fight for fall of 2021. Canelo's going to fight again when in February or March
Yeah.
for
He was
Ildrim
just
because I
saying
think it's
mine.
defended in 90 days. Okay, the next day will be May. Do you get Caleb Plant in May or do you really get him in September?
I don't think he wants him in May. I think he wants him in September.
But here's the thing: we haven't heard anything about the Billy Joe Saunders Boo Boo Andre situation, but I did see where Boo Boo said he's willing to take a pay cut to fight Billy Joe Saunders. I think that fight will have something to do with it too. If Canelo doesn't have an opponent, because think about it, if Billy Joe and Andre don't fight until March or April,
They're not going to be ready for May.
or for September for that matter,
They're gonna
depending
be
on
excited.
how if the fight takes a toll on either one of those guys, that's only 5 months.
I think they'd be ready for September. If Canelo fights in May and he says he wants to fight again in September, you
Right.
have to be ready in September.
Yeah.
Because your fight was 2 months before his.
Hmm.
So that means you don't want the fight. That's just
And he'd already fought once in the year already.
exactly.
Because he has some mandatory against Ildrim in what, 90 days?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting, bro. It'd be interesting. I'd like to see. I want to see the Boo Boo Saunders fight, but yeah, I really want to see Plant versus Canelo. Where is David Benavidez?
Well, when you lose your belt on the scales and you seem to have a bit of a reputation that precedes you, you're not always going to get the first call. David has to show a little bit more discipline. We know the skill is there. As far as the way he fights, every fighter has their flaws. But for what Benavidez does, he does it well. But he has to climb that wall again, bro. He might have to fight one or two more times before he can seriously get back into that conversation. Doesn't have a belt.
Yeah, and you lose it on the scale. That
Yeah.
makes no sense to me. I'm not saying fake an injury, but come up with something that you can postpone the fight if you can't make the weight. If you don't have the
Nah, because you want that payday.
but you gotta look beyond just that payday. Now where are you?
We don't know who he's taking care of. We don't know his financial situation. I get what you're saying. Long term, that definitely makes the most sense. I'm with you. But we don't know his situation. He may really need that money for whatever it was for.
Yeah, yeah.
Because at the youngest, as young as he is, you're right. He has time on his side. Benavidez is younger than Lubin. Benavidez is like what, 23?
Something like that.
Because he won a bet at 19, right, or 20.
Yeah.
Uh, he might be 21, 22. He's a young guy, very young guy, still a kid, really.
Gotta get your head right, bro. Gotta get your head right.
Yeah. Yep.
Because you trust me, don't get to a certain age and look back and go, man, I threw away some years that I really could have been riding high because of something that I could have prevented.
Let me tell you something, bro. I heard something very profound on Drink Champs the other day. I was watching an interview with Noriega and the Goody Mob. And Big Gibbs said something in regards to the record industry. He said, no, Nori made a point about hip hop being the only music genre where once you get old or you get up in age, you're considered washed. And nobody wants to really hear from you, right? We're the only genre that do that. Other genres, rock and roll, country, you make money as long as you're able to get out there and perform. Hip hop, we discard our legends. Big Gibbs said something very, very profound. He said, the reason why hip hop is that way is because the record execs want to continue to rape and pillage the artist. You can't rape a grown man. You can't rape a mature man, but you can rape a child. And what he means by that is not in physical stature, just maturity and experience. These young kids don't know enough and haven't experienced enough, so a label can come and say, hey, I'll give you $5 million. Well, if your OG ain't got $5 million or ain't got $5 million to throw away, then you don't have respect to him. You don't need him. You got more money than him, technically speaking, right? And then CeeLo followed up and made a great point. CeeLo said, it costs too much money nowadays to look like you got some money. That same thing applies to combat sports, bro. These kids make a lot of money fast, and they're blowing it, and they're able to post on social media so the world can see it. They're getting all this gratification going on, and they feel like it's going to always be there. And that's not the case.
That's so true. I mean, you and I both have been in that industry at some end, at some point. And we know that the fans would, the hip hop fans would support the old heads. They would support the OGs of hip hop. When they come in concert, it sells out. But as far as putting out new stuff, you're right, they get no airplay and it's all controlled by the execs. It's really all controlled by one company, but we won't even go there. People are like, well, that's not true because Jay-Z gets airplay. You get one monkey that control the zoo. That's always been the theory
And,
and the formula.
and not only that, yeah, and just to kind of expound a little bit on what you're saying, you keep the masses down by giving to a few.
Hmm.
Oh, well, look, he made it. Why can't you make it? Oh, you're right. I should just try harder. No, man, it's the oldest trick in the book.
Yeah. I mean, why do you think there's only a certain number of drug dealers who have any money in their 40s and 50s and 60s? I knew a whole lot of them growing up. I knew a whole lot of them when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, in my 20s, in my 30s. I knew a whole lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
The masses are dead. The majority of the rest of them are broke and living on public assistance.
Mm-hmm.
Those that had something to offer, those who are in control, who are not us, they still sit on a little bit of stuff. And most of them are encouraging younger folks to get in the game. That's how they keep what they have. They encourage you to get in the game. They say they're dropping nuggets of wisdom, how you can have longevity like them. Where are the people that got them in the game? Where are the
Yeah.
people they got in the game with? My grandparents and my parents taught me to look at the whole situation. Don't look at what's right in front of you. Don't miss it. But if you really want to see what's right in front of you, look at everything in the room. And I had to make a choice in life. And I realized probably staying in college was the best choice.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't loaded like a lot of my contemporaries, but
Mm-hmm.
I was all right.
Yeah, I mean, listen, and one thing that we have to understand, and I talked about this the other day about younger generations, And this obviously happens with young people, but sometimes you have to be accountable. You should be accountable all the time. But I think this young generation has lost all accountability. They want everything to be someone else's fault, someone else's problem. And that's not the way the world works. These echo chambers are dangerous. And whenever you're around a bunch of people, y'all all saying the same thing, you're probably in the wrong room.
Say that again, bro.
These echo chambers are deadly, bro. And if you're sitting around a bunch of people and y'all all saying the same thing, then you're probably in the wrong room, bro.
Oh, I understood what you were saying. I just wanted you to say it again.
Yeah, that's wild, man.
And I agree with you, Miss Karen. Yeah, we're still slaves because of the mindset. It has nothing to do with. They realized hundreds of years ago they really didn't need whips and chains. Once they, oh my goodness, don't get me started on the banana theory. Um, have you heard that one where you take a group of monkeys and you put them in the room and you put a ladder in the center of the room and you hang the bananas over the ladder, and every time a monkey goes to get climb the ladder, you shoot him with water, you wet him
Mm-hmm.
and knock him off the ladder, and then eventually when a monkey goes, the other ones are gonna fight him to keep him off the ladder, and then
Mm.
eventually you take a monkey out of that room. Say that you have five monkeys in a room. Eventually you take one out and you put a brand new one in who hasn't had that treatment. But every time he goes for the ladder, the other ones will attack him to keep him off the ladder. They figure they're saving him. And you do this, and then you start taking monkeys out who have endured the treatment and putting new ones in, replacing one at a time. And eventually, none of the original monkeys are in the room, but all the ones that are the new ones that are in the room follow the same mindset because it's always been that way. And too many of us, and I'm talking my generation, people older than me, still have that mindset. It's always been that way. We got to do things below board. We can't do things on top of the table. We got to smile and grin. We got to take what's offered. We can't make our own because this way it's always been. But it hadn't always been that
Right.
way. Hasn't always been that way. So, listen, that's not what we're talking about on this show, but it's just a reality.
Hey, and before we get up against it completely, I wanna let you in on something. Did you see where Bellator backpedaled and signed Yoel Romero?
I wasn't
Yeah,
gonna
they
touch that.
backpedaled and they signed Yoel Romero. Here's the reason why Coker City did it, bro. The fan support and the upswelling of people in the MMA community saying, hey, if this guy still has something left, you need to sign him. And I think with him also signing Rumble Johnson, that creates a natural rivalry of both of those guys. And if both of those guys can still summon up who they were, you could possibly see them in the Bellator Championship fight at 205.
Yeah.
Romero does not want to fight a heavyweight, which is smart because he's been able to keep the weight off this long and he's in his mid 40s, early 40s. It's probably going to be more of a hindrance from the bulk up at this point. So yeah, so we could see Rumble Johnson and Yoel Romero, which is a fight I'm sure we're both tuned in for. If they can stay injury free and kind of be who they used to be, if that's still in them, it might be at the summit in Bellator. That might be a fight worth watching.
That will be a good fight.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking forward to that one. I'm looking forward to that one. I did see that. I just wasn't gonna comment on that. I'm glad you brought it up though. I wasn't gonna touch it
Okay.
as far as them signing Yoel Romero, and I have nothing against Yoel Romero. Um, I just it is what it is. That's all I'll say. It is what it is. I'm glad that he got signed. Hopefully he'll be able to do or be willing to do more in here than he was doing at the end of his career in the UFC. Hey, shout out to your team, the Buffalo Bills. Um, they beat the Patriots into some decision making. It was a thorough beatdown. Thorough beatdown. Even someone who's not a Patriots fan, it was hard to watch. It was hard to watch. But it happened.
Nothing lasts forever. There's always a change in the guard. The Spurs. run ended. The Patriots run ended. The
Let me ask you this
Bills
though:
are on top. It's 2020, bro. This
you're
is okay.
you're a Spurs fan still.
Hmm.
The Spurs had a dynasty over what? How many years?
About 20 years, 22 years.
22 years. So their first title to their last title was 22 years.
Hmm. Well, their playoff run.
No, no, their
Not,
dynasty.
oh
It's
yeah, well yeah, the Dynasty, yeah, 20 years.
okay.
They won five championships in 20 years.
Five championships in 20 years. Right. That's one every 4 years. It's pretty
Hmm.
good. Would the Patriots do six Super Bowls in 19 years? So
Something like that. Hmm.
yeah, one every 3 years. That's a dynasty.
Yeah.
My question is, if the Patriots turn it around and win a Super Bowl within the next 2 or 3 years, is that still part of that dynasty? Are they still continuing their dynasty? Because
I'm gonna
Belichick is still at the helm. That's why I'm saying that.
I'm gonna say no, and here's why. There's always one iconic piece or player that kind of ties a dynasty together. The Spurs lost it with Duncan and Kawhi Leonard at the same time because Kawhi Leonard came in under Duncan's tutelage. The Patriots lost Tom Brady. That was the guy that tied the whole thing together. If you look at the Patriots roster, it's a bunch of guys that we don't really know what, except for Stephon Gilmore, maybe a couple of guys on the offensive line. But for the most part, that's roster has been completely turned over now. We don't. There's no one left on that roster except for Stephon Gilmore. I think McCourty, one of the guys in the secondary that was on that Super Bowl team, right? James White, the running back whose dad died, he was on that team. But yeah, it's a complete. The roster's almost been completely overhauled. The main piece, as far as a player, is gone. So
And
now
was
I don't even think he's playing. He might be, bro, but yeah,
okay.
nah. And like I said, when Kawhi Leonard left the Spurs, that was in that dynasty because he was brought in under the old dynasty. So he could have transferred that and kept it going. But once he left, that was it. Tom Brady's gone. That's it. Even if they go back next year, it'll just be more of a new regime starting under Belichick, and you'll continue on from there. Just like if we make another run in basketball, it'll be a new dynasty up under Greg Popovich, who, by the way, is still talking about retiring. It's going to be a sad end, all of sports, when that happens.
Yeah, one of the real good people in sports. Really, one of the real good people in sports.
One of the top three NBA coaches all time.
Did it the right way and just kept
Yep.
doing it the right way. And I mean,
Yep.
he was one of the first to come out during his.
Oh man. Yep.
I mean, yeah, he just.
Even before that,
Yeah,
he was always dropping nuggets. Even before that, years ago.
yeah.
So yeah. And
Great
it's
person.
funny because he's a military man, honorable discharge, all that great stuff in the military town, and for accomplishing all things he's accomplished. Boy, hate sure does run deep, boy. You'll find out where your lines are. We start saying things people don't agree with.
Yeah,
I was able to see Greg Popovich on a couple of local platforms through satellite TV, and boy, the people in San Antonio weren't too happy with him. We started talking about, you know, what we all know, and that's white privilege.
but when for him to come out and say it, just I always respect him. I didn't like him at first. I ain't gonna lie, because I wasn't a Spurs fan, but I wasn't a David Robinson fan. Put it that way. But, is that Jomo?
That was ice.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. Ice has rhythm. Um, but yeah, I became a Greg Popovich fan. Um, yeah, I salute the Spurs. They had a great run. Um, I always wondered though, had they let Tim Duncan go to Orlando, would they have been able to have that kind of run?
I don't know his history. We'll never find out.
Because there was
But boy, Orlando would have enjoyed it.
there was a strong chance for him to go to Orlando when they had
Yep.
Penny Hardaway. And
Nah, they didn't have Penny then. It was Trace McGrady.
that's right. I don't know why I thought they had Penny when they
Trace
still had
McGrady,
Penny.
Darryl Armstrong, Tim Duncan. They would have decent. They would have a tough squad.
Yeah, they would have been the beast of the East.
Yep.
But for that, for them to not get him, and then he chose to stay in San Antonio. Hey, San Antonio reaped the benefits. Anyways, it was something else I wanted to. Oh yeah, I know we're up against it and we got to go, but I got to get your point on this one. Did you see who the Heisman finalists were?
Yeah, I don't care. And you know I was going to say it before you brought it up.
Two
I don't care.
Alabama players, Trevor Lawrence and
The receiver,
from
Devontae Parker, right?
no, um,
It's not Parker. I'm sorry for butchering his name. But what the receiver is, that's who you're talking
for
about.
Alabama.
Yeah.
Yeah, him, Mac Jones.
I want to say it's Devontae Smith or something like that, ain't it?
Yeah, it is. Him,
Okay.
Mac Jones, both from Alabama.
And Kyle Trask.
Trevor Lawrence and Kyle Trask. I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, there's some better players in college football than to me than those five or those four. But you know, out of those four, if you had to pick one, who would it be?
Throw them all away.
Out of those four, if you had to pick one, who would that be?
I mean, obviously I'm gonna go with Trevor Lawrence because we're gonna pick him with the first pick. But
We don't usually agree.
this
but I
whole
would have
this
to
whole
agree.
show was this whole college football season was garbage. So
Yeah, yeah. So they were like Justin Fields. Some people were complaining Justin Fields wasn't nominated. I'm like, well, you got to be outstanding every year you're in college football for certain players to get nominated. So sorry, Justin. Maybe you can win a national championship. That Heisman ain't coming back to Ohio State. All right, bro. Well, if we're wrapping it up, I say shout out to my wife, my daughter, my mom, Miss Karen, Fighter Share Nation, my pops. Shout out to everybody who tuned in and gave us likes today. Shout out to Miss Karen for commenting. We thank you very much for your support. And I'm turning it over to this dude.
you gotta love hearing that sound, bro. It's so excited. Um, yeah, we ain't got much, man. We appreciate everybody for rocking with us today. It was a pretty good show. We covered a lot of interesting topics. We'll be back tomorrow at 11 a.m. on our more refined show. Well, he'll dress up and I'll just come looking as debonair as ever. It's holiday season. We still got a new year coming up. Spread the holiday joy because, like I told y'all yesterday, after January 1, we back on our ratchetness. No more time for spreading feelings. We're going to be giving it to y'all raw. We got a lot of good stuff coming up these next few weeks. Make sure you log in, tap in with us. Holiday love, spread the joy. We out here. We'll see y'all tomorrow. We out here. Peace.